Craig, dream transfer window. Said more forever football. Dream window. Right, here's my dream window. Canade signs a new deal. Stays at the club. On about 140, 150 a week. We sell Kwanzaa, because I really am convinced. And we buy Huijsen. Then we have Huijsen, Canade, Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, if he sticks around. And if Joe stays fit, we're good. If he doesn't, then maybe we need to dip our toes in the market again. Certainly be looking at seeing Nalo's progression as well. Left back, sell Costas, bring in Kirkes. Right back, Bradley being the starter. Don't actually know who to come in as the backup. There's the Freiburg right back. There's the one Wesley from Flamenco. There's the guy, the Romanian guy from Rayo Vallecano. Midfield, again, not my decision, but it looks like Elliott's going to be sold. So if Elliott's going to be sold, who's the creative midfielder you bring in? Well, the name most mentioned this week has been Fermin Lopez from Barcelona. And then up top, dream window would be Isak or Julian Alvarez. I prefer Alvarez, personally. So Darwin out, Alvarez in, Jota out, and I genuinely do want Delap as a secondary option. And I'd be happy with that. What's the news with Frimpong? I don't know any. Genuinely, I'm not saying Liverpool aren't going to be in for Frimpong, and I'm also not saying Liverpool are going to be in for Frimpong. I don't know. But I know he's got an agreement that he can leave Leverkusen for 40 million euro. It looks like their manager could be off to Real Madrid as well, if you believe in stories there. So I don't know, but I don't think he's a natural fit for us in the way that we play. Harves for Coco said, "Hi Craig, any players we sign who in the Prem gives me confidence they can hit the ground running with used to be in the tempo? Thoughts?" Yeah, I mean, can't argue with that logic at all. You can't argue with that logic, mate. You know, Premier League tried and tested is important, which is why Kirkes is super appealing. Same with Huijsen. Again, it's why Isak would have been super appealing as well. So yeah, I can't argue with that one bit. I think it's sound logic. Matthew, thank you, mate, for your super chat. Really appreciate it. So, Craig, don't you think it's a bit early to give up on Kwanzaa? He was first choice a large part of last season, still only 22. Also, I wouldn't mind paying Canade 160, 170. Perhaps I'm in the minority. So, it's not my opinion that matters about Kwanzaa, mate. You know, I'm unconvinced on him, but it's not my opinion. The manager, well, I think he's answered that question for us this season. You know, he played right back today because Jones was already on the pitch or had already been substituted at that point. Other than that, where's the trust been from Arne Slot in him? Because we've basically had two centre-backs all season. So, again, like, I just say the things that I think are happening, and I'm not saying I always agree with every decision, but I do want the manager to have the squad he trusts, and I don't get the feeling he trusts Kwanzaa. But on giving up on him, totally valid point. You know, 22 years of age is too young to give up on anybody. But we are in the age of we need players right now for that centre-back position, and we need them quick. And if the manager doesn't trust him, well then, I would say cash in while his stock is still relatively high, rather than maybe wait a while. But I totally do appreciate your point. And on Canade, 160, 170, look, I said 140, 150. We're not a million miles apart from each other there. So I just think going from 80 to 200 grand a week feels a bit much for me, for Canade. But again, I appreciate your points. Ryan said, "Hey Craig, with all the talk of a busy summer, my trauma tells me it'll be more outgoing than incoming, typical FSG fashion. Again, to leave us frustrated what we'd only signed 2 thoughts." So for me, Ryan, right now, I think the squad is too small. And by that I mean too small in what the manager would utilise. So let me go back to today's bench. Let me just grab up the bench from today's game again. Today on the bench, we had Endo, who the manager doesn't trust to start a game. Now, seems to trust him to see out a game, but won't start him in a Premier League game. Soboslai, no issues for me there. Chiesa, again, he's a statue. Manager won't play him. Sitting on the bench, 7 million quid a year. Manager doesn't want to use him. Gakpo, again, no problems with Cody. Harvey Elliott, I love him. A lot of you guys love him. But again, not a sniff today. Not a chance the manager wanted to bring him on. Robbo, well look, him or Costas, one of them are going anyway. Yaros contract up at the end of the season. Kelleher going to leave at the end of the season for a fee. And Kwanzaa, again, seemingly not somebody the manager trusts to play a whole load of games. So there's loads of scope in this squad for me for improvement. And improvement, at the very least, should be players the manager feels like are his type of players. Wait, what else we got? Harvey King said, "Hey Craig, don't think be a massive net spend this year. Probably spend around 250 million, but sales will be around 200. So I'd be okay with that. Look, I tried to use this example the other day. Do I want FSG to pony up though? Yes. But here's an example that I'd give you of why it doesn't necessarily always just have to be about throwing money at it. So let's say we have a situation where you sell Darwin for 60 and you sell Jota for 40. You bring in 100 million quid. That same 100 million quid, at least in theory, could buy you Hugo Ekitike and Liam Delap. So you've then changed the attack without really spending any money, and at least changed some of the players that the manager feels would suit a system better. So I don't mind what the net spend is ultimately if the answer to the question of have we addressed every concern in the squad is yes. I'm not just somebody that wants numbers. I don't just want 300 million spent so I can say we spent 300 million. I want a squad that I feel is stacked and has two choices in every position. And if you can do that by moving on fringe players and supplementing it, there's nothing wrong with that. At least, I hope most people would agree with that. I mean, it's lovely to get a big signing, and I'd love us to go out there and drop 100 mil, but you know, I also love that Michael Edwards has gotten us top dollar for fringe players as well. I think that in itself is a skill. Fahim, how are you, bro? Said Craig, my dream window, sell both Robbo and Costas, get Kirkes and Anthony Robinson, get two centre-backs, Huijsen and Capier, Joe and Jarrell Boy, and if Lucho leaves, a replacement. The problem with the gentleman Anthony Robinson is his age. So he's going 28 in his next birthday. And if Fulham are going to demand a fee there, 40 or 50 million, it's a lot of money to pay for somebody at that stage of their career. He's a really good player and a really good shout, as in for a fit for the way that we play. He's got a great engine to get up and down the wing. But I think in Kirkes you have that, but like 7 years younger. So I've given you 4 options, and I haven't put in Isak because it doesn't seem realistic, and I haven't put in Julian Alvarez because it doesn't seem realistic. So the options that I think are realistic and that I know the club are at least looking at are Ekitike, João Pedro, Cunha or Sesko. Now that doesn't mean Jonathan David isn't other realms of possibility, or some name we haven't spoken about, but of those 4, which one do you think is the most likely to come through?